Wudamuli to you all. I bring greetings from Aboriginal Australia. Our people are one of the oldest surviving cultures on the planet. Our occupation has been set at approximately 60,000 years. And in that time of 226 years of white occupation, much of our country has been decimated by mining and development and ravaged by flood and drought. Our old people tell us if we don't respect the earth, it will not respect us. Our fellow Indigenous Australians, the Torres Strait Islanders, will be our first climate change refugees. Their islands, as we've heard from the Ambassador, are fast approaching sea level embedding. And yes, some of their graves are at risk as well. I would like to thank the organisers of this fine conference and to my former Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, who recommended that I come. He said sorry and apologised to my people, which changed the history of our country, and if not, the world. And for him, I'm greatly indebted. He's a good friend of Al Gore's too, from what I hear. In fact, we're all products of our history, and it never ceases to amaze me the world we came from and the world in which we now reside. We are all such precious peoples, as any one of us sitting here today could have been wiped out in the wars, the shootings, the poisonings, by disease and torture, etc. But we are here, and we survive as human entities to share our stories. How remarkable is that? And given the efforts of our great Creator, this is why we are here. Our great Aboriginal philosopher, Mary Graham, describes the basic precepts of spirituality. These two things are: the land is law, and you are not alone in the world. Aboriginal people's culture is ancient, and certain observations have been made over many millennia about the nature of nature, spirit, and human being. The most basic questions for any human group, despite advances in technology, have not changed much over time. They include: how do we live together without killing each other off? How do we live sustainably without damaging the environment? Why do we live? The need to find the answer to this question in a way that does not make people feel alienated, lonely, or murderous. The land is a sacred entity, not property or real estate. It is not the great thing that has to be bought and sold. It is the great mother of all humanity. The dreaming is a combination of meaning about life and all reality. Reality and action are guides to living. The two most important kinds of relationships in life are, firstly, those between land and people, and secondly, those amongst people themselves, the second being always contingent upon the first. The land, and how we treat it, is what determines our humanness. Because land is sacred and must be looked after, the relation between people and land becomes the template for society and social relations. Therefore, all meaning comes from the land. You are not alone in the world. Aboriginal people have a kinship system which extends into land. This system was and still is organised into clans. One's first loyalty is to one's clan group. It does not matter how Western or urbanised Aboriginal people have become, this kinship system never changes. It has been damaged by, for example, cultural and physical genocide, stolen children, westernisation, etc., but has not been altered substantially. Every clan group has its own dreaming or explanation of existence. We believe that a person finds their individuality within the group. To behave as if you are a discrete entity or a conscious isolate is to limit yourself to being merely an observer in an observed world. Developments over the last decade with regard to Aboriginal land rights, native title, have highlighted the ambivalent relationship Australians have with land in our country and their uncomfortable relationship with Aboriginal people. Many Australians, however, have seen this period as a chance to understand themselves and their country and the kind of society they want to live in the future and for their children. Our reconciliation process in our country has played a big part in this. Part of the problem for Aboriginal people in modern Australia is working out ways in which we can continue carrying out custodial responsibility to land and at the same time try to obtain control over the economic development of our communities without falling prey to the seductions of individualism. In conclusion, Aboriginal people are not against economics or private ownership, but they ask that there will be recognition that ownership is a social act and therefore a spiritual act. As such, it produces effects in the immediate world which will show up sooner or later in the external world. What will eventually emerge in a natural, habituated way is the embryonic form of intact, collective spirituality and spiritual identity for all Australians, which will inform and support our daily lives, our aspirations and our creative genius. Wurrumuli to you all. Thank you for being here.